Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview Sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today I have the good fortune to be joined by Antonio Buchanan, the co-CEO and Chief Strategy Officer of the global brand innovation and design firm Antonio in Paris, with offices in Los Angeles, Paris, Miami, Portland, Manila, and Mexico City. Antonio, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Seth. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic. Let's go back in time a little bit. How did you get started?
I started at Young and Rubicam. So I started at this tiny little agency called Y&R, and worked there for a couple of years. But the major goal was to get to Ogilvy. That's what I wanted to do. So did that, moved to Ogilvy, and spent most of my career, other than owning my own business at Ogilvy, working on things like American Express and IBM, all that stuff. It was lots of fun, learned a lot. Then moved to California, got lured by FCB to start a division for them, and then woke up one morning a year later and looked at how much we've moved the ball forward and went, why did I do that for somebody else? Let me try doing that for myself. So literally started the agency in my garage with my car, 2-car garage. I was on one side and the car was on the other.
So you've had, obviously the longer version of that story should probably be in a book. So you've got a heck of a track record from working from several of the largest, most successful agencies in the world to then being inspired to jump out on your own. Was there some I mean, I know you talked about the whole, hey, why am I doing this for other people? But was there a defining moment where you said, oh man, I really that's it. I'm going out today and I'm starting my own agency?
Yeah, and I won't mention names, but I was in a meeting, and it was a beginning of the year meeting with a client, kind of mapping out what was going to go on strategically for the year. And the CEO of one agency walked into the conference room, and the client said, "Oh, you walked into the conference room. I guess we're going to be talking about money today." And that hit me hard. That people looked at the senior people in organizations and said, you're here to collect money from me, as opposed to you're here to help me strategically and get stuff done. And so from then on, I went, if I had my own organization, we're going to do it in a way that the senior people, and you'll see my title says co-CEO, but it also says Chief Strategy Officer, and that's intentional, so that people know it's not just a managerial title, but it's a working title.
Awesome. So you bit the bullet, decide to launch your own agency out of your garage. Talk a little bit about, I mean, you now have, offices in 6 different places, 6 different locations, probably more, including some in different countries around the world. How did you grow?
Interestingly enough, this is the second time around. So the first time we started the agency, and within 2 or 3 years, and it was during the tech boom. And so within 2 or 3 years, a lot of technology companies were trying to figure out how to go global. Whether it was startup or not, they were trying to figure out how to go global. And I had the experience from Ogilvy working on global pieces of business and kind of corralling all the resources to get it done. So with that, we kind of knew as we moved from country to country or region to region that we needed a foothold in that region. And the reason wasn't really because in some instances in agencies, they do it just to service the business. It was because we wanted ideas to come from the region that we were working on, not sitting in New York and trying to come up with an idea for Eastern Europe, but we felt that we needed to have people there coming up with ideas that could affect the other way around. And so we did that, and we were bought by MDC, and then 2 years after the non-compete, then we started, the day the non-compete was over, we started Antonio in Paris. And we want to be able to have a team that's one team. So that's kind of unique. Even though people are in different locations, if you're working with a client, I might have a creative person who's in Budapest and a strategic planner that's in Miami and a project manager that's, you know, someplace else, but it's a global team, and it's purpose because it's a global idea that's coming to the table with different cultures bringing something to the table.
How have you maintained that creativity across cultural, state, and country lines?
We do kind of what we call innovation sessions every quarter. With COVID, we haven't been able to do it in person, but we still do it on Zoom and things like that. But pre-COVID, we would do these innovation sessions every quarter, so that a group of people would meet in a location, and somebody from Miami or London or Mexico City or stuff like that, they're gonna show up in California, let's say, and work on challenging problems for certain clients together. And then they go back to their other offices. And we've made a commitment to do that on a quarterly basis. And clients love that because they know, and sometimes we invite the clients to drop into those sessions over a period of time as well. And so it gives them a sense of working with these people, but it also gives the people a sense of, it's one thing you and I talking like this, but if you and I have the opportunity to sit and break bread together and have a drink together and still kick things around a little bit, it's a lot stronger in terms of trust and relationship as we get stuff done.
You have an approach that's kind of unique in terms of finding inspiration anywhere. Can you talk about an example of that and then how you foster that among your team?
We have an internal website that people can post any idea when they travel, things that they see that different than what they've normally seen where they live. And what that does is it gives people a sense, it's almost our own internal Pinterest board. And it gives people a sense of learning about cultures all over the world. And, you know, my wife, who's my business partner in this, we can't it's really hard, like Seth, walking down the street with her in another country because she's a creative director, the phone comes out immediately and she starts taking pictures of a font she's never seen before, or, you know, a sign or a street sign. It's crazy. But it's with I don't know how I'm going to use this today, but I think I might use it sometime. We have a client, it's funny, I've learned the term, it's a polymath, I guess. The Franklin Institute is Benjamin Franklin, and it's a museum that we work on. We're doing a rebranding project for them now. And we learned about this thing where he would come together, and it was called the Leather Apron Club. And he would come together and bring together people from all different walks of life once a month. And they would just throw ideas on the table about things that they didn't even know what they would use it for. They just knew it was a cool idea, and eventually they might get to it. And so we find that you do eventually get to it. Something happens that clicks in that you go, oh yeah, I remember a year ago I did X, Y, Z. Let me look it up again. And that's kind of where the creativity comes from.
Now, you talk about there's the emotional drivers that get people to do the things they do and get them to hopefully buy. And then there's the practical, logical side. And there's obviously the quote, you know, we buy on emotion and we justify with logic. How do you help brands find the intersection between the two?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of brands focus in on, and they kind of stand back when we use this term. So they talk about all the practical stuff that their products and services do. And we look at them and we go, and those are your intellectual alibis. Those are the things that you kind of rest your laurels on. And I want a car, right? And so I want XM radio, and I want air conditioning, and these are you're checking the box to go, okay, I did my due diligence. This is a cool product. That's good. The problem with intellectual alibis is they're easy to copy. Tomorrow or a month from now or a year from now, someone can look at it and craft something that's pretty similar to what you're doing for an intellectual alibi. And so what we do is we look at these things called need scope, and they're emotional drivers that, Seth, you might buy a product because it gives you status, or it makes you feel like you're part of a group, which is affiliation that you want, or it makes you look smart, so it's discernment, or it makes you feel independent, or it gives you a release. And so there's these things that we look for and we go, what's the brand delivering at the end of the day to this person? Yes, they bought the product, but let's finish the sentence. What does Seth get out of it when they do it? Like, really get out of it. And when you overlay that on top of the intellectual alibi, that's when the magic happens. Because that stuff, if you articulate it the right way, you can't really own just the intellectual alibi, but you can own the emotional part of the equation.
So have you then, you talked about walking down the street and just grabbing pictures of fonts or images that could be inspiring and could get used at some point, some way, somehow. How do brands then tap into cultures around the world to find not only unique similarities that is cross-cultural, but how do you embrace those differences and keep everybody happy and buying at the same time?
Yeah, I'll give you something that we're working on now. I won't mention the client, but it's a challenge, and it's funny because it's not even around the world. It's in the United States. We're working now on a challenge for a client where the question is, are Californians different as it relates to design than the rest of the United States? And so we went through this whole thing of, everybody wants the contractor to show up on time.
Yeah.
Everybody wants, which they never do, and everybody wants them to do a good job. Don't disrupt my life too much. All that good stuff. The question becomes, do Californians look at it and go, which they do, more than anybody else in the United States, well, what I'm going to do to my home is an extension of my brand. Like, people are going to look at this and they're going to go, that's Antonio, right? So everything they see, the color of the room, the the furniture in the house and things like that. And it's unique. It shows a sense of independence and things like that, even more than New York. We've done the research, even more than New Yorkers, even more than people in Chicago or Texas. It's just a unique thing to California. However, we all want, wherever we live in the United States, a nice house. We all want it to look good, but what's the reason that I want it to look good is different. And that's what we tap in, whether it's a different state or different countries. We kind of find the fine line. It's the same, we say it's the same landing strip, but the flight pattern might be different getting to it.
That's a good analogy. Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you do?
I love working with clients on something really hard. I love working with clients that are open to, we're not just going to come back with a brand assignment, with a brand idea, but we might come back with, based on all this stuff we've just done for you, you're missing an opportunity from a business model perspective. We get to do that. Like in 1 hour, I'm going to talk to somebody about that client I talked about the California client. Right after that, I'm going to talk to a client in Belgium about something else who's trying to figure out what happens when COVID's done, and will people still come back to movie theaters in the way that they were before? And so I love the variety, and I love the kind of the big bodacious challenges that we can have, and then take it from there.
Can you give us an example of like a magical transformation that you've been able to engineer for a client? If their identity is confidential, that's fine. But what was the problem they came to you with? How did you help? And then what were the amazing results they experienced? Because you've got a heck of a track record.
Yeah, I would say it's probably Mini Cooper. They came to us, they were having some problems in the U.S. And it was interesting. You know, as all clients, you kind of look at the demographics of your target audience, right? And so male, female, income, all that good stuff. But then they said, help us figure out what's going on. And so we went out and we did some research, we observed, we did a lot of different things. We have some proprietary tools that we use. And what we found out quickly was it had absolutely nothing to do with an age or if you were to purchase a Mini, or it had nothing to do with how much money you made or anything like that. It had to do with a mindset. And that mindset was kind of this rebellious, independent, creative mindset. So whether you were 18 or 80, it didn't matter. You felt like you were part of this group of rebels. And so, for instance, the 60-year-old, there's a lot of people that own Mini Coopers, that have owned the BMWs, that have owned a Maserati, that have owned a Mercedes, and then they made a decision, I'm getting a Mini Cooper. And people go, why would you do that? Because it's different, because it's cool, because I can
Park
trick
anywhere.
this car out in a way that, right, and park anywhere. So there's this attitude about it. And so we went back to them and said, we think what we need to do is not think about it in terms of the normal demographics, but we need to think about this as a club of rebels who just want to, it's their personality coming out. And so that then went to their agency and we put together a rebel strategy for them. And they did the rebel campaign. So it had Serena Williams and Tony Hawk and things like that. And sales went up in that first year of doing the campaign, like 23%. Again, just that shift, but it's outside of the norm.
That's fascinating. So I know you are a voracious content consumer and you keep up with trends in lots of different industries to just kind of percolate and feed your brain. What are 3 of your favorite books?
The latest is the one I'm reading 2 at one time now, Obama's book, which is fascinating. Also the book from the CEO of Netflix. And then lately, my favorite book, because I've been reading it to my grandchildren off of this very cool app. There's this app called Caribou that I get to read them a bedtime story every night, is an ABC book with Grover on Sesame Street. So that's my 3rd favorite book.
Awesome. What are some of your sources of inspiration? Who are the podcasts you listen to, the people you look up to, the people you follow that give you ideas?
You know, it's funny. It's not the norm. It's not like, so I will, Jeremiah Brent, for instance, who's an interior designer, his philosophy behind design, I love. So I pay attention to that. I listen to a lot of what he's doing there. Wallpaper, which is, it's not very well distributed, but it's a very cool magazine that talks to, and the digital part of it too, that's design ideas, lifestyle trends from around the world. And I just love every month diving into that because, again, I'm looking for something that I can look at and go, can this be used later on as well? I'm fascinated now by what's going on with streaming and wondering what's next, what's gonna happen next. I've been paying a lot of attention to Clubhouse and going, am I drinking the Kool-Aid or not? You know, I'm like looking at it and going, yeah, it's cool, but I don't know. I don't know what to do with this right now.
Yep, I did one the other night that was scheduled for an hour and I had to make somebody else a moderator and drop off after an hour because everyone wanted to keep going. And,
yeah.
You know, that guy later told me we went for like 3 more hours.
Yeah. So I think it's cool. I don't know what it's going to be applicable to at this particular time. And, you know, clients, obviously, they hear the buzzword Clubhouse and they're like, what should we be doing? And I'm like, I don't know yet. It's too soon for us to do it. I don't know how to monetize that yet. And I don't even think the influencers who are on there have figured that out yet.
Doesn't mean we can certainly have a separate conversation about that.
You know, right?
You give advice every day. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Just because someone says something is a bad idea doesn't necessarily mean it is.
That is excellent advice. For our folks who are watching and listening and want to learn more about Antonio in Paris, who is an ideal client for you?
Today, it's the Franklin Institute. It is a situation where it's the kind of client that is hires us to do something, but they're not looking for a base hit. They're looking for a home run. It's funny. I had a client that said they gave a recommendation for us the other day, and he called me and he was laughing and he goes, "I don't know if I should have said this to this prospective client." And I said, "Uh-oh, what did you say?" And he goes, "Hire Antonio in Paris. Be careful what you're asking for. If you're saying that you want something significantly different that's going to change everything in your organization, hire them. If you're just looking to tweak something, you probably don't want to do that." So
very interesting.
And I was like, "That's fair." But he goes, "So which means I might have screwed you up. You might be leaving money on the table. But we want at least the ability to bring something, even if they say no. I mean, they all don't say yes to every idea you bring to the table, but those that are open to ideas, that's who we want to work with."
Awesome. For our folks who are watching and listening and want to learn more, where's the best place for them to go?
AntonioInParis.com is the best place to go, or they can find me at ATDMoxie on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. This has been Seth Greene for Sharkpreneur with Antonio Buchanan of Antonio in Paris. Antonio, thanks so much for joining us.
Seth, this was great. Talk to you soon.
Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We'll see you next time.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level, but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.